Hello and welcome to Power Reflections, a proud member of the Duff Network where we reflect on Wildbow's most venison-packed, antler-racked, bullet-impacted, title-hacked, character-jacked, pain-racked, ransacked, foundation-cracked, contract-enacted, least compacted, fact-backed, second-acted, after-packed work. Huzzah!
Huzzah.
Work as it releases. I'm Ruben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
Yeah, and we're coming at you live in the Discord. And you know what, Elliot? For those folks live in the Discord, we've got a special announcement just for them. Do you want to tell them what it is?
Yep. The special announcement only for people in the Discord is Ruben. No, you can't. Sorry, Ruben's trying to change the script on the fly because he keeps saying it wrong.
Not saying it wrong. I'm saying it in a way that fits the rhymes better.
No, it doesn't. You're saying it wrong.
All right. Well, I'm just going to keep doing it.
Special announcement, aside from Ruben's blatant attempt to cheat the system, is the fan art contest has started. So we're doing another contest with Jenny and Malia. This one's centered around transformation.
Yeah. And you can find the information on that on the Duff Media website. But yeah, as usual, you've got a little bit to do your fan arts and send them in and be rewarded with the prize.
Yeah, and I mean, transformation is a fun... I feel like there's a lot people can do with that from any Wildbow story.
That's very true.
They're not particularly static stories.
Which character would you like to see the most? I guess let's stick to Pale for spoiler reasons.
I guess if you're doing one focus on transformation, I mean, it was this topic was decided on after we read the Helen interlude a week ago. So
yeah. That's obviously very fresh in the mind, isn't it?
Yeah. But I don't know. There's got to be a better one.
I mean, I was thinking of Helen. That's one that I had in my head, of course.
Too bad. I stole
it. Or a fan art of Aziza did it in chat, gives the great answer of someone should do an animal style art of Verona turning into a cat, which is very wonderful. But I was thinking of the I don't know how anyone would do this in a single piece of art because it feels like it needs to have motion in it, but Liberty's
yes,
Sailor Moon anime transformation vibes,
or Avery having that done to her. That was the best one.
Feels like it needs to be like an animatic or something, but still would love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can get more info on that, the terms and conditions, the info, all that stuff on duffmedia.com.
Yeah. I think the due date's like February 3rd or something. And there's prizes, it's like $100 and stuff. So check it out. If you can do any arts.
Yeah. Even if you can't, well, you never know. I mean, the only way to learn is by doing.
Well, no, the line is...
Without further ado.
You're only allowed to submit something if you can do better art than I can, which basically means anyone can submit something.
Sure. Anyway, yeah. Cool. Well, let's get into the chapter, shall we? We've got a great Lucy chapter here. The gang last chapter started heading towards the church, but they need to fight every single step of the way, basically.
Yeah.
And that really is the summary of, like, this is a classic combat chapter, which I think we always say, we'll do our best to cover, but they're the kind of chapters where you get the most out of just reading them. So, if you aren't reading the story and you're just experiencing it secondhand through us, well done to make it this far without reading the story. But we'll recommend again that you actually go read it. But yeah, it's a fun combat chapter. With the thing I love about these chapters, especially these types of chapters that Wildbow writes, is they always have like some fun like one-off villains, I guess, one-off like enemy combatants to deal with.
Oh yeah, we get like a menagerie in this chapter.
Yeah, we get a few good ones.
Yeah, but no, I agree. Sometimes when you do like your little summary bits for every chapter, there's those ones where you write like the summary of how the chapter opens, and I think, well, that just applies to the whole chapter. And this one, more so than ever, was just the gang are trying to get to the church, but it's a real struggle. It's basically just the entire chapter. I think, like, yeah, last week's Verona chapter, I think we talked a bunch about how well the chapter like did it, making us feel how like at the end of her rope Verona was, like how much she was running out of tools, like her body was just had been through the ringer, and she was really starting to struggle to keep up. Um, and I think this chapter is a really fun way to show us how Lucy is kind of going through her own version of the same thing. Like this is just an absolute slog, and her patience is wearing kind of thin by the well, actually from the start of it, really.
Mm,
But it's like Lucy doesn't have the same kind of. She doesn't run into the same like walls as Verona, I guess, but she's certainly reaching her own. Like, I definitely thought there's the angel guy who serves as like an eye in the sky spotlight kind of thing. Um, and it's been a while since like there was really too much focus on uh like Lucy and the way I mean, it used to be a big thing in the Blue Heron that like everybody watching Lucy and kind of like looking at her was like a bit of a thing for her.
mm,
And it feels like that, like some of that stuff is kind of very tangentially being brought up, just like the way they feel like they're fugitives with this spotlight chasing them around and stuff. Feels like it's sort of dragging that up a little bit.
mm. Yeah, yeah, interesting. It's a good link to call out.
Yeah, and old mate with his big ass eye.
Yeah, well, big eye, big mouth, big everything buried under a big hunk of wrinkled
Big everything, you
flesh.
say?
Big, well, oh yeah, and that's the subject of my fan art, which is going to be X-rated, and you can see soon. Yeah, he lifts up his belly, and you would not believe the monster dong he's got under there. Anyway, back to the actual story. Yeah, I do love this flesh guy. That is an enemy in this in this. Oh yeah, great call by Giles Al. Is the other character that's in this erotic fan art that I've written is going to be what's her face with the wolf mirror shard, and you know as described, very buxom. Let's just say. Anyway,
Oh, and the yeah, the BDSM hamster that they called out, which
yep.
was the one that's was also quite well endowed.
Mm. Or just and what's his name, Anselm, who also is very attractive. Anyway, God, what are we talking about?
Yeah. I
So
thought I was the
let's
one
get
coming into
back.
this
No,
episode
no, no.
who's like half asleep and wasn't going to be coherent, but I think we're both bringing that energy today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's gonna be a
yeah.
fun one. No, I wanted to talk about this wrinkly flesh guy and what a fun and hot character he is. No, I think the little like mini reveal of the humming, and Lucy's like, "Oh, he's humming. What's up with that?" And then it's revealed that
Yeah.
that's the muffled version of him just constantly screaming. It's just like ridiculous and wonderful.
Yeah, I was amazed at how much cool stuff Wildbow managed to get out of the Scrunchy family. Um, like, yeah, there were a bunch of little moments like this where their scrunchiness was used to cool effect to hide stuff in their wrinkles.
Yeah, it's they're pretty fun, and then of course comboed with Lantern Watcher Man.
Yeah, yeah, who I just assumed was like their equivalent of like the police chopper, basically. Like the way he was chasing them had that vibe of like the chopper up in the sky with the spotlight looking for them.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Verona and Lucius fighting the Spider Children, and then eventually Spider Dad and Lantern Watcher Man, but they're not quite in sync, are they? And yeah, well, I guess I want to jump to the line that Macaulay says of like, "This is how you guys function," and it made me think like, are they less in sync than usual? I feel like there's a lot. Like without Avery here, you can definitely feel there's a bit of them kind of grating against each other or some friction. But you know, thinking back, there's been a lot of times where they're not in sync in this story, and they still kind of get shit done, just like less efficiently. So this is kind of how they operate.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is like worse than normal, but also not that different. Like, yeah, I agree. Like, there's that real like you never meet your heroes sort of vibe from Macaulay, where like everyone outside just has to assume that these three some impressive well-oiled machine. It's like, no, it's actually always kind of a bit of a shit show of like nonsense like this. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I definitely think it's a bit worse. Like, and I don't know whether that's because Avery's missing and that's put things off balance. But then they were kind of fine when she was in Thunder Bay.
Mm.
So is it just because I mean they're all fucking tired and at the end of the rope? Like I think it might just be like we saw Verona's barely functioning at the moment. Like I think it's just some of that.
Mm. Yeah. This is conceptually the being out of sync. I think is introduced with Verona basically giving a book report during this fight about these enemies that they're fighting, or yeah, and like there's just no point to it at all, right? Like there's no practical information there in there. So Lucy is kind of rightfully, in my opinion, frustrated at this. But it's just a
Yeah,
classic Verona moment. Yeah.
it's a classic Lucy moment. Like Lucy's always the person who needs things to kind of have a point, and it's just like whereas Verona's just kind of nerding out a bit. Verona's like, oh, they're this, like that's so cool, and Lucy's just like, yeah, but tell me where to stab it, like.
Yeah.
And
We're in the
yeah,
middle of the fight, Verona. Save
yeah.
this for the post-battle debrief.
Like it's just the best perspective to see this moment from, because like Lucy's she just doesn't have it in her for this year. Like, this is that Lucy version of being at the end of her rope, like we saw with Verona. Like Lucy just doesn't have it in her to force herself to have the patience to deal with this bullshit right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. And then I really love, like, because Verona gets a little bit defensive about it, and that's when Verona turns around. She's like, well, I told you to read it. And Lucy's like, you send me shit at 3 a.m. all the time. You tell me everything's important. Like, and I really fucking related to that. Like, I've actively over the last like 2 years been working on, I kept getting into trouble at work because I put too much information in emails, and I'm having to like, be more careful about what I say. And it's just, like, and just I guess being a Wildbow reader too, you just want to be like, read this web serial, it's great. So
is that what you kept putting in your emails? Is
yeah.
Oh, here's that file you requested, Mr. Johnson, sir, and also
And I've also attached
serial.
I've also attached a 1.6 million word web serial. Yeah, no, these are separate things, but yeah, like I guess
okay.
Just I thought it was like it was definitely a very relatable moment by Verona, that it's just like she just keeps wanting to share this stuff, and Lucy has to have that point of just like, can you just not though?
Yeah. Yeah, there's also this great moment of Verona pestering Lucy to be like, hey, I've got this thing set up, throw them over here. And then Lucy does, and Verona's not ready for it, or like the way that Lucy gets them over there means that Verona's not ready for it. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, no, it's like she's
yeah.
like, bait one over to me, and so Lucy does it, and then but like she has to push it along the ground, and so Ronnie's like, well, now you fucked up my diagram. And it's like she didn't mention a diagram. I think Lucy just like says fuck to her or something like it.
Yeah. Classic stuff.
It's so funny. And yeah, this is that like bit where I became sold on the idea that you're talking about, where it's like, I don't think this is just like the stress. I feel like this is meant to kind of invoke some of that Arc 13 not on the same page energy. Like they're just, for whatever reason, it's probably a mixture of all of the like being tired, Avery being gone or whatever, but they're just not gelling like they have been even earlier in this arc.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's all Verona's fault. Verona's extra annoying, and I don't think it's just because we're in Lucy's head that I'm going away with that perspective.
So that's why I 100% the Verona in this thing. I was I can totally see myself doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, actually, the really fun dynamic that I was also really enjoying here was Lucy and Macaulay, because like there's an aspect to this where Lucy is just really kind of struggling here because it's essentially a bunch of like half straight hooligans.
Yeah.
And it's that very hooligan vibe where like Oakham and Macaulay keep saying stupid shit and kind of joking around, and Lucy's getting a bit mad about it. But Macaulay's kind of the interesting one because Macaulay is really a badass and does some great stuff. So there's like, it's almost more frustrating to Lucy that Macaulay's the one that could be helping more, but she doesn't seem to be like taking it seriously. And it leads to this, all this funny stuff where Lucy is almost seemingly flickering between being super glad Macaulay's here and being really angry at Macaulay for not doing more. Like I found it really fun. Like
Yeah.
the bit that really summarizes it to me was there's the part where Macaulay kills someone, or yeah, I think kills one of the Scrunchy family, and she like apologizes for stealing Lucy's kill, and Lucy's like, I could not possibly give a fuck about that right now. Like, just
Just
like,
yeah.
like, what are your priorities that you're worried about stealing my kill? Kill, please. We need these things to not be
Yeah.
trying to kill us.
It's Macaulay kind of saves the day in this chapter a bit later, right?
Yeah,
And it's very interesting that yeah, like she doesn't seem to want to fight, and Verona seems to be like, oh, because we've
yeah.
just rescued her and we don't want her to have to like use her family practice, which she's just gotten away from, which is Verona being very aware, which is good on her. But yeah, she could be doing more, definitely. So I feel Lucy's kind of frustration at that.
Yeah, it's just it's like, yeah, she's really competent, but they just have such different priorities. And so it
Yeah.
leads to this really funny dynamic between the two of them. When Lucy's like, because I like you can't expect Verona or even Oakham to actively do that much in a brawl, whereas Macaulay you can, and it's just like, please get on the same page as me.
Mm, yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
also love the backstory we get here about the goblin candies. Particularly Lucy trying to reconcile the good way that they're using the candy, where it's like, yeah, we've got these candies that make kids really sick and then we can mug them. But we use it on kids who are being lured into a Black Forest hag's gingerbread house. So
Mm,
it's like they don't end up in the gingerbread house. We do still mug them and steal their clothes and their wallet and stuff, but they don't go to the Black Forest hag. And like Lucy's just sort of like, I mean, I guess like
yeah, it could be worse, definitely. So
like,
well
if you're gonna
done.
mug and steal from kids, I guess that's the way you're gonna do it.
Yeah, the vibe of we make it so that Hansel and Gretel shit themselves too much to go to the gingerbread house is fun.
Yeah, it's such a goblin way of fixing that problem. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
oh yeah, I was gonna say as well. So there's a bit where Verona thinks on the fact that the angel bogeyman guy with the spotlight might be angel made. This is really hard to do on the podcast because angel with a capital I made.
Mm-hmm.
Like, God, Mercica didn't make this easy for us having them be angel themed bogeymen. But like, because I remember we did get told earlier in the story that these capital A angels are the things that create stuff, and they can essentially be hired by gods to create things.
Mm.
So it kind of makes sense that Marisica might hire capital A angels to make her little a angels.
Mm.
But that's just one of those details where I'm like, I don't know why, but this feels important. Like we saw that one capital A angel during Muss's invasion, and everyone kept talking about how important and powerful it was, even though it seemed kind of shit tier. So
Mm.
I feel like the fact that Marisica might have been working with capital A angels on something, I don't know. I don't know if it just felt like a detail where I'm like, this feels like it'll matter later.
Yeah. Yeah. I I think that's interesting. I wonder if it's gonna matter if it's just flavor, but good to keep in mind, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of suggests if Mariska is working with those capital A angels, she must be building something big. I guess. Like, I don't think she would just hire them to make some rando bogeymen that the Kenneteers can beat. And we
Mm.
know she's talked about this not being her final form
Mm.
in the past. So I just feel like some of that stuff might tie together. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. We'll have to see, I
Um,
suppose.
yeah, especially like there's also just the fact that she's hiring capital A angels to build her little A angels.
Mm.
Like the whole way Marisika is like leaning into her twisted, bloody form of Christianity
Mm.
imagery, like hiring angels to work for her as the goddess is like. I guess I feel like there's going to be some interesting stuff to explore with her trying, because it seems like she's trying to shortcut herself to really powerful godhood by using what I assume is the predominant religion in Canada as a kind of
Mm.
crutch. Like, she's clearly just
Mm.
taking a lot of Christian imagery, flipping it on its head, and using it as a shortcut to establish herself. And I wonder if there's catches to doing something like that.
Mm. Like she'll be beholden to serve bread and fishes to people on mountains or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, or like there'll be other aspects of the imagery that come along with it that she won't be able to, or that will be kind of forced upon her. I don't know. Like I mean, there's also I think it's hard not to draw a parallel between like Maricica's evil, bloody form of twisted Christianity and like what you see a lot with like hateful right wing groups, particularly in the US, right? Where it's just like you see all these people talking about like the really like fear of God, like everyone's going to burn in hell sort of stuff. Like people who say they're Christian, but it seems clear they haven't actually read the New Testament because they're all about like God fearing and hate and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. So it also just feels thematically appropriate for the story or whatever that like Maricica is dealing with that kind of energy. Like I think she's intentionally allying herself with people who are just going to be all about violence and shittiness, and maybe that'll catch up with her.
I'm sure it will. I mean, I hope it will. We'll have to see. But yeah, so the gang kind of escape from this fight, having traded blows with the scrunchy folk, and run straight into another fight against what I think is maybe a rogue Fallout NPC.
I was going to say Borderlands, but I haven't played Fallout.
Borderlands tracks. I mean, they're both post-apocalyptic, wastelandy vibes. So
the gardener aspect made me think of. Do you remember Terra Snapdragon in the Owl House? She's
yeah,
the head of the plant cover, and there's that episode where she gets the kids and traps them in a hedge maze.
He's there. Oh yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
like the summer camp for promising
yeah,
teens.
yes, yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
This scene reminded me of that a lot, just because you got a
I feel
big
you.
plant lady building a maze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, sorry, just funny that she's a big bogeyman and her thing is like plants. Like you I don't know, I see the abyss as this big scary place and it's like what, you're like a glorified like tree person? Like that's not scary.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we didn't see enough of her, but
I mean,
I was like, it's all flowers and shit. Like that's not scary.
yeah, but she's like, I'm gonna make you into my flowers. Like it gives the very like flayed flesh vibes, classic
Yeah,
Wildboat
I guess.
stuff. um,
I guess yeah, I was just surprised that it was like a gardener. I was like, I would have assumed the abyss was packing hotter stuff than a chick who's gonna make flowers.
but the abyss, like that's her passion, so it's kind of nice that she has the opportunity to.
She's chasing her bliss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think something that stood out to me about the way they get out of this situation is they kind of are saved by their connections, which feels like a very Avery rescue. Like Macaulay, the Bitter Street Witch, and the dog tags, which I guess are more of a Lucy connection, but still like. And none of those are Avery's connections per se, but it's a very like Avery style, which I liked and indicates that Avery is still kind of with them, but from beyond the grave.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is a win that's sort of sourced from seeds they've been planting since summer break sort of ended, right? Like, I guess what concerns me is that it feels a lot like now these are cards they've had to play, right? Like the Bitter Street Witch and Mal kind of having a bit of a resistance in the Undercity. They've now had to like use a lot of those guys to get them out of here. So like as much as I'm like, oh, this is a really cool victory, because as you said, it's like pulling on a strength that you think might have been lessened without, now that Avery's dead. But they've still got a bunch of these connections and they're still helping them. But also I'm like, this feels like another card that's been played. Wait, Maricica and co should now know to expect a huge resistance or something.
Yeah. Hey, should we talk about the moment, the moment in this chapter?
I don't know what you're talking about.
What is this? Okay, I'm going to read it out. Lucy stared forward at an evening night sky. A dark, ominous shape loomed in the distance, standing askew, surrounded by an ocean of junk metal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously the thing that
I mean, it's so
we
obvious
want to
what this
think.
is. I don't think we even
Yeah,
need to
yeah, we
say
don't
it.
need to. It's obviously a
Let's
reference
just
to.
move on.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we know what it is. Yeah.
no, but it's clearly like we're meant to think that it's Avery, right? I mean, like that
Oh, it
feels like
is
it's
for
what,
sure. It
right?
has to be. Yeah. Like this is the gate of Horn giving her a peek at what Avery's seeing. The question is, what the fuck is she seeing?
Yeah.
This isn't like this is not this is so perfectly evil by Warbo because it's like it feels like it should give us information, but I don't think it does.
Well, it gives me vibes of like the constructs at the center of the universe stuff, right? Like that's what it feels like to me. Is like, in the same way of the giant cosmic cube or whatever. It's one of these types of things. It's one of these areas of levers over the universe that can be accessed through the paths.
I didn't get that vibe, but I've seen a lot of other people agree with you. Well, in chat right now,
Mm.
um, I mean, it's hard not to look past it being some kind of pathy vibe. There's just something pathy about
Oh
an
yeah.
evening sky, piles of junk metal, a giant figure being askew. I feel like the junk metal is the thing I really want to latch onto as being important,
Mm,
but I
mm.
can't think of what it relates to, except for like the big fucked up Pisces construction that we saw in the promenade that was like all wrecked. They were pulling junk metal off of it and tossing it somewhere.
Mm.
So yeah, but I don't know. Part of me doesn't want to think it's path related. Like, I feel like we're just latching onto path stuff because it's Avery and because we've got a bunch of random details that we don't know how they fit together, and like
Yeah.
that's what paths is.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it? We'll find
Yeah,
out.
like
We'll find out at the interlude at the end of this arc. I'm sure.
the Avery interlude. Well, Avery's Echoes interlude. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, the fake Avery, the Finder version of Avery's interlude
yeah,
that we get at the end of this chapter, which ends with it coming back and taking Avery's place on the team. Um,
yeah. No, but, yeah. I will credit to Walbo for this because it's like it feels like it gives us a ton of information, but it's giving me nothing to work with. Like, I love that. It's like and like you feel that in Lucy too. Lucy kind of spends the whole rest of the chapter being like, "The fuck," and like this is the first clue they've had about Avery, and it's just it's nothing.
yeah, pretty tough. But we'll figure it out. We'll put the pieces together. Um, but yeah, so yeah, they get out of the oven into the frying pan, and then out of the frying pan into the fire because suddenly it's Helen Kim. But the thing I
I
don't understand, Elliot, how did
yeah,
she escape that binding? I mean, I thought she was bound.
man, I'm as clueless as the ambient spirits are on this one when it comes to Helen.
Yeah.
Who knows how she does it?
How
Not
does she
us.
do it?
It was funny because when I was first reading the chapter, my reaction to seeing Helen here, I was like, "Haha, what a great final boss moment." Turns out there's a even more bigger final boss coming. But I do really like Helen as the kind of end to this gauntlet. Just like after going through a bunch of like psycho monsters, we hit the most psycho monster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she really has kind of masked off, right? Like earlier chapters with Helen, she at least was seeming to pretend to be a human being, but she's now completely happy just being a monster. I was very happy that she got shot in the head, despite kind of knowing it wouldn't
It's not
take,
gonna
I
do it.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like especially after her doing that speech on how she was like breaking the dogs so badly that they wouldn't come back for a long time.
yeah,
It sucks to see her steal their trick and just take a bullet to the head and get back up.
yeah.
Yeah, in a positive note, she does confirm that part of Brett's house really did get set on fire, and Brett's not going to be able to live there. So that's great for a bird. A bird's lifelong dream of Brett's house being burnt down has finally come to pass.
Yep. Yay.
Um,
That's very fun. And of course, the horrifying thought is that this is going to end somehow with Brett becoming a hooligan, but we'll see.
yeah, I mean, like, because that's the thing, right? Is like Brett now needs somewhere to stay, or at the very least, he's going to be conscientious of the fact that Verona needs somewhere to stay. Like, there's no way this doesn't involve him starting to ask questions about where Verona has been living. So that's fun.
Mm, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
The other thing that felt like a really important detail here was as they're like surveying the area while talking with Helen, Lucy kind of realizes that about 30% of the people are on Maricica's side, and about 15% are like on Team Bitter Street Witch and stuff. But that
Mm.
actually leaves a little over 50% of the people who are just like kind of not involved at the moment. Like even here in the Undercity, 50% of the population is like kind of just in like hunker down, try to weather this bullshit war out mode, which feels really important because I'd kind of started assuming that the Undercity was pretty much 80% Maricica's.
Yeah, it's nice to know there are holdouts, right? That is really good. It's good
Yeah.
for the ability for the Undercity to come back
Yeah, and when
from
it's
this.
like, at least half, and there could be efforts to maybe try and get to some of those people and do what they just did with Liz, or maybe not, but it's like it's kind of encouraging to learn that about half of the population is at least not on Maricica's side.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Hopefully that can be leveraged. That feels like the kind of thing that Avery would try and leverage, but you know, maybe when she's back.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see Avery as being the network person as much for the Undercity.
Mm,
Like it's just the Undercity's so not her vibe. I actually think you'd be better off using Verona for that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. True. Anyway, they get away from Helen while she's being headshotted, no 360 no scoped, and it turns out Lucy did have a plan here, which is that churches are sanctuaries, they declare sanctuary, and also the fun trick: anybody else who is captured can declare sanctuary, and these churches are now useless as ways to kind of morph captives, assuming that that news spreads, which it sounds like it will, which is a
Yeah.
great trick, a clever reveal. Lucy's really got him. I think it's Marcy who says, like, wait, how long have you been planning this?
No, I
Um,
think it's Helen.
sorry, Helen is what I meant to say. Yeah, not Marcy. But yeah, it's very, very good. Um,
Yeah, well, because I remember calling that out when it came up in the moot and almost worrying about the opposite. I was like, doesn't this help Maricica that these places are sanctuaries? But I didn't like Lucy's 10 steps ahead because the sanctuary stuff kind of overrides what Maricica wants. So it's such a
yeah,
good yeah.
it's very good. And I thought, they run into the church, and I'm like, oh shit. I mean, they made it to the church, but they're still fucked, aren't they? And then we get this sanctuary thing, and you get a few moments of being like, oh, they've got it. They can leave. They can't be, attacked as they leave. Like they've got it.
Mm.
Um, and then we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of like, okay, well, they're in the church. Um, yeah. Apparently, there's like safety at the church or whatever. But I'm kind of like, yeah, still though, how do you get out of it?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the family man is in here too that we've got to call out. We finally do learn he is seemingly a convert.
Yep.
I love that for him. I kind of got like priest cardinal vibes from him in this. Like
Yep.
he's stepping. It seems like he's really stepping in and entrenching a place for himself in Maricica's religion as him as a fucked up evil priest. Yeah, I love one of those classic things where I'm like, we should have seen that coming. That's perfect. Of
Mm,
course, the family man has twisted into the priest. Like
yep. Makes a
every,
lot of
every
sense.
everything toxic he was about family stuff, he can easily do that as a toxic priest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the father. Oh, yeah, I like that.
The father. That's very good.
Father family man.
Um, but yeah, so unfortunately, Marcy's back from her vacay and declares, "Whoops, done with this church. Sanctuary unsanctuaried."
Her entrance is so good too. Like, because you
Mm,
sort of, yeah, like as soon as Helen says she might have something to say about it, you know what's coming, and it's just the laughter fills the room, and it's just like, oh god, I love Maricica's
yeah.
need for drama.
Yeah, it's
Can't you
very
can't
good.
fully take the Faye out of this girl. She's still got that love of the drama.
Mm, yeah. So yeah, now they're pretty proper fucked. Like
Yeah.
they're gonna have to fight. at the very least, Helen and the family man, not to mention Marissa, who is here now. And yeah, pretty rough situation to be in.
I mean, yeah. Like it's the one thing is, as the chapter's kind of wrapping up, Lucy has this thought where she's like, it made her think of other things, the way this all fit together, things that hadn't added up. And I have no idea what the fuck she's talking about, but it kind of seems like Lucy might have figured something out. And that's like the only thing carrying me at the moment is Lucy has seemingly put something together that might help them get out of this.
Yeah.
Like,
I hope so.
I mean, yeah, either that or like now would be a good time, Avery.
Mm-hmm.
If
Definitely
you're gonna
time
Lazarus,
for you to come back.
if you're gonna Lazarus on up, this is the time to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. But it's a rough spot for them to be in.
Actually, sorry, has Avery been gone for about 3 days?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay.
Oh, I see. It's an Easter resurrection. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would fit into the Christian imagery that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That would be fun.
Yeah. But that's the end of our chapter for today. But of course, it's not the end of our episode because we've got some predictions to pull out. Predictions left by our
Huzzah.
community in the Pale Predictor form, which you can find linked in the show notes. Well, I'll start with mine because I want to talk about yours more, Elliot. So,
Sure.
I want to talk about yours for a longer period of time, I think.
Yeah, I think it warrants it. Yep.
So I put out a prediction by Amenable Anemone, who I think is a new predictor. Welcome to the scorecard. Which is that Gillian will be able to see what Helen's deal is through her altered, horrified eyes, and will be able to reveal the secret, and that will bring Helen undone, effectively. Which is, I just like, it's a very simple, quick theory, but feels very like karmically satisfying as a way to fuck with Helen. So I really like it.
Yeah. I have some small questions about that. If seemingly everything outside of Helen is kind of unaware what she is, I almost want Gillian more to figure it out than necessarily see it or whatever. But yeah, I do love the idea of the horrified augur who got special horror-based augur powers, being able to use that to fuck Helen right over. That feels good. And especially because like it seems like the big weakness that Helen's interlude set up for Helen is that if somebody just kind of says out loud what her deal is, that seemingly fucks her right up. In fact, it fucks her whole family up, which good. So like that's what's really fun about this is Helen is like so powerful and so unbeatable, but also has like just one person needs to kind of even maybe guess it or just say it out loud and she's fucked.
Yeah. So feels doable for sure.
Yeah. And also because I think so my understanding is the reason that she's not just like, Victoria Dallin horroring all the time is because the spirits kind of aren't aware, and that makes it easier for her to keep her human form. So like if she gets called out, does she just like melt into a horror? Because that would be a fun scene.
Yeah. I don't know. She just falls apart as a pile of tentacles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of swarm out as a mass. Anyway, I brought a prediction from Journalith, and last week I said my goal was to bring a new crackpot tinfoil Avery prediction every week until she's back. I didn't say it had to be mine, so this week rather than bring you my own, I'm bringing Journalith's prediction. Who Journalith has predicted that Avery has time traveled into the future. Specifically, I mean, I'm just Journalith wrote a lot here, and it's a very good and detailed prediction. I'm just going to have to kind of butcher it a bit. But basically, we got introduced in Biscuit's interlude to one of her potions that kind of makes you blackout drunk, and then you travel forward in time and end up somewhere kind of safe, and it can be used as a getaway thing. And so Journalith is theorizing that Avery had one of those and has taken it. So the question isn't where Avery is. The question is when Avery is. And and that basically Avery's just going to reappear at some point, presumably maybe a bit healed, but still with a bullet in her or whatever. But she's going to pop back into existence after this potion runs out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this explains why like even Chase can't find her, just because she isn't anywhere right now. She's slipped into the future.
Yeah, it's such a lovely theory. I absolutely love it. Joneleth seems to kind of hint that he is leading into a joke with the final paragraph of this prediction, but I do really like it. Like, I really think it could work.
I don't know. There'd have to. I don't know. I feel like there'd have to be more going on, but I do. I love this as tinfoil. Like this is for me. This is right up there with time traveling Tyrion fetus tinfoil. So there's something about funny time traveling tinfoil that just really works.
Yeah, it's so great. And yeah, of course, the fact that Avery is gay means that she can time travel, so that also lends it.
Wait, was it time travel? I thought she could
Was
do like teleportation.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, whatever.
Gay people can't time travel, Ruben. They
Sorry,
teleport, you idiot.
I got my Marcy Oka powers mixed up. Okay. Anyway, thanks for leaving your predictions, everyone. Ay. So we also have a discussion question we were running for the past week, which was quite a fun discussion question about picking a human from the story and telling us what boogie monster they'll be turned into, which no longer can happen because they can call for sanctuary, but theoretically. We got a lot of fun answers to this one. My absolute favorite one was one of Uncle Thermoscales' answers, who gave 3 answers: Oakham, Zed, and Durashay. Well, let's go through all of them. But so Oakham's was the it was really gross, but they're all pretty gross because they're all abyssal transformations. Oakham's, so just like slight, I guess, gore warning on this one, but Oakham's ankle injury comes back and is bleeding everywhere, and she kind of limps around on it, and also her cane fuses with her hand, so she just kind of becomes a limping, shambling mess.
Yeah, I really liked the idea that her cane would fuse to her hand and kind of become a natural extension of her arm. But
Yeah.
particularly her arm would start to become wooden as much as the cane would become her. And I think Uncle Thermoscales get bonus points if the wood is oak.
Yep. She becomes part oak, part ham, which is great. We had Zeds, which was the one I really, really liked, which was effectively a foreman, but with like the character of the foreman, the ex-leader of the factory, but with 80s tech.
Stu Mullins, mate.
Yeah, well, Stu Mullins' ex-boss. Yeah, so like muscular tape decks, old computers, kind of travels around electrically, but is very like a beefy 80s soldier, effectively. And I just loved it. I just thought it was so great conceptually.
I was picturing like fucking like cyborg Arnold Schwarzenegger vibes, like Arnold Schwarzenegger if he had tape decks in his pecs and stuff.
Yeah, kind of like if the Terminator crossed with Inspector Gadget.
Yeah,
is what I'm picturing.
But all very 80s themed, like because you got to keep that part of Zed where it's like all fucking Tron themed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then Dorosha, they predicted she might just turn into a kind of beastie thing, like a bit of a mini primeval, just like turning into a furry, hairy, rabid beast. But the interesting thing is they said specifically Abyssal Durashay. I love the idea that she would target higher powers, like because we know that like bogeymen, they get like stuff from scaring people. Like that was something Killwagon used to talk a lot about. Was it like he could murder people or he could just spook them, and that both of those fed him. But like with Abyssal Durosha, she might specifically get her power from like spooking or murdering higher powers.
Yeah.
Which, like, speaking of, I mean, Marie, if you're free right now, we've got a goddess.
Yeah, come in and help. Yeah. Yeah.
Like take her power. You know, normally I don't condone killing a god, chopping them up for parts, and like using them for batteries like the BHI did or whatever. But in this case, I'm willing to make an exception.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to convert Marisica into a battery, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Who else is doing? Like, I really liked Tata Domalian's answer, which was around Sin and Sin's hallows becoming kind of out of control, bulging tumors, effectively, or like cysts or whatever,
Yeah.
that kind of build up and then explode in kind of spiritual energy. So it's effectively still similar vibes to Sin, but just she has a lot less control over it, effectively, which I thought was wonderful. And there's, of course, some body horror to match.
Yeah. Like, because, like her whole gimmick is this way. She's created those hallows like around her body, and that's kind of cheating the system. And if the abyss is this very visceral place, kind of turning those into big tumorous lumps. So I was like, yeah, that's a great kind of monkey's paw version of her power. I really like Hobo Demon's answer, which was about like Mallory and like her tattoos. Does focus on like maybe an ability to control ink or using the tattoos to claim people.
Yeah.
But very specifically, they talked about like the idea that she could like a boogeyman version of Mal could maybe kind of collect tattoos, and those tattoos could be used to have powers. So they talked about like a tattoo of an animal that could be like a fucking like a Yu-Gi-Oh card where it becomes like a big hard light hologram, or like I don't know, just having various kind of superpowers or abilities corresponding to tattoos, which just sounds like a cool practitioner as well as maybe in like a bogeyman.
Yeah. 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 Some great vibe. Who else did we get? Propaganda Pagoda talked about Soul. Now this one I had a little trouble conceptualizing. It sounded very
Yeah.
cool, but it was very like
The problem is it was built around a reference to a Street Fighter character, and I have not played those games.
Dulcim from Street Fighter, who I'm pretty sure is the one who can like stretch out his arms and kind of hit you with long, stretchy arms.
So like Lanky Kong or like the
Yeah,
Scrunchy family?
like Lanky Kong,
Okay.
Kong from Street Fighter.
Now, see, then I'd play Street Fighter.
Why did they never add more Donkey Kong characters to Smash Bros? Sakurai, you're a fucking coward, all right? Like, I want Lanky Kong. I know we had Donkey and Diddy and King K. Rool. That's like the bare minimum, all right? I want all the animal transformations in there. I want Lanky Kong. I want Cranky Kong. I want Kitty Kong. I want Dixie Kong. I want Funky Kong.
Yeah, I want Funky Kong, but he doesn't actually have any moves that do damage. He's just vibing.
He's just like... he's a pure passive character.
Wait, because then you don't even need to balance him. It's an easy way to add a character to the game. Just add someone who can't actually do damage. He's just vibing.
Yeah, but then you'll get a YouTube video with 10 million views that's Funky Kong defeating every level 9 CPU.
Yeah, Funky Kong wins by doing nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, that was propaganda because
Yeah. So just like this version of Soul that was all about kind of violently surging and morphing and like cascading himself into things, like kind of that elemental energy of like big, strong, instant attack, but abyss flavored.
Yeah.
And then we got a last minute answer from Beleg Tal, who just figures Brett could probably do it. No change needed. Just kind of an emotional boogeyman, I guess.
Yeah. Just as is.
Yeah. I like, because I feel like that's more Ruin's vibes, like his emotional stuff. So I'd love to see it kind of made material by the Abyss, like just Brett kind of coming at you and like with every sentence like lashing, I don't know, chains or something around you, like just like dragging you down to his level sort of vibes, like try to make that physical.
Yeah. But yeah, so great discussion question responses, everybody. Thank you for leaving them. Of course, we have a new discussion question this week, which is... Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I thought you were pausing for me to do it. Yeah, I mean, what candy or other food have you heard about that you think is actually a goblin prank? We heard about some cool goblin candies this week, and it made me think of some stuff that I've heard about. So I'm curious what foods people have heard about out there that they think is actually just a goblin prank gone wrong.
Yes. Do you have any that come to mind for you?
I mean, the first one that I think of is that I can't remember the name of it. It's like that rotten shark that they eat in like Greenland or Iceland.
Yeah.
Like
No,
that feels like a prank that a goblin pulled on someone.
It's like strumming or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Is it a shark? Yeah, maybe it is. I feel like it's a fish. Anyway, yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good one.
What about you?
There's the classic ones that are like, well, I've never tried some of these, so I can't, be too critical of them. But like, balut, I think is one that I think of a lot as just like that's
what is
crazy
it?
food. It's like I think it's similar to like 1,000-year egg vibes.
Okay.
An egg that you bury for a long time in a specific way and then eat after many years. I think that's right. Maybe I'm getting two different things mixed up in my head. All right, I'm looking up balut. Oh no, sorry. Balut is especially gross to me because it's a fertilized developing egg embryo that is, well, we'll leave it there, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I've heard of that, and gross.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
Tata Demalian brought up a great point, which is something we've talked about on the Discord recently, but for some reason, Vegemite has been doing a lot of partnerships with other companies to put Vegemite flavored things everywhere, and some of them are so cursed.
Some of them are really good, though. Some of them are great.
Some are good. The shapes are fine. It's just a worse version of pizza shapes. But like the Vegemite chocolate from a few years ago was just awful.
Yeah. No, but it was it was a stunt, and I think it was successful. It was fun to try. We had some, didn't we?
I definitely ate a whole block and then felt really sick afterwards, and I can't figure out why.
I mean, could have predicted that, I think. But
yeah, I don't think that was the Vegemite chocolate combo. I think that was just having a whole block of chocolate.
But yeah, so leave your answer to the discussion question in the discussion thread, which you can find linked in the show notes down below. And yeah, thanks for joining us, folks. If you want to hear more from us, we post a great Pale themed meme every single day over on our Twitter at Pale Reflectorcast, so you can head there for more.
Yes, you can also check out the website doofmedia.com to find out info on all the other great shows on the Doof Network. Pale in comparison just rounded out Arc 13. So they're making good progress.
Yeah, they're getting there. If you want to support the work of all the hosts on the Doof Media Network, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Doof Media. And you know what, Elliot? There's a special bonus, which is if you're a patron, you get to vote on the answers to the fan art, on the answers, the what do you call them? Submissions to the fan art contest. That's for patrons. Patrons get to decide who wins. So become a patron and you can do that.
Yeah, because there's a $100 prize and then a $25 runner-up prize, and that's our patrons' money. Going through it, so they're the ones who get to vote and get to see the art early. And yeah, speaking of Patreons, don't forget to stop by Wildbow's Patreon, patreon.com/Wildbow, because unless you're listening to this in a church, you have no sanctuary, and so you gotta pay up. We're extorting you. And if you are listening to this in a church, like, what's that about? What do you? That seems weird.
Yeah. But
podcasting in a church doesn't seem right to me.
Maybe you just want to share your passions with God. Nothing wrong with that.
God can only hear podcasts in church.
Yeah, God only sees things that happen in churches.
I think that's not canon.
God's not Santa Claus, right? Okay, so you gotta bring it to church if you want God to participate. And if you,
sorry.
And if you want to support Wildbow's Patreon, go to patreon.com/Wildbow. Did you already do that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I got distracted by the God thing.
We're both so out of it. Let's just cut ourselves off now.